How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Owen Smith Show. I am once again your host after a role switch last week. Lucas is once again the co-host. Of course, he is joining me as always. Lucas, how are you doing on this Wednesday? Officially the start of the new league year of the 2025 NFL season, just barely a month after the 2024 season ends. The league with truly no offseason. We have a lot to talk about. It was free agency this week. There were some big trades made. There were some teams I think made some good additions to their team. There are some teams that I just feel like added guys to their team to spend money. And we'll talk about all that later on. We also have some quarterbacks changing teams, some quarterbacks who will change teams within the next couple of days, we think. I don't know. But most importantly, Lucas, how are you doing on this Wednesday of free agency week?
I'm doing pretty well. Been busy the past couple of days because there's uh, been a lot to learn, a lot to argue about, and a lot to speculate. So, can't wait for the offseason to continue.
Yes, that is for certain. And we will start with the Kansas City Chiefs, Lucas's favorite team. I think he's wearing a Chiefs shirt from what I can tell. Yep,
Yep.
I was correct. I saw the Kansas City up top. So they made some additions and subtractions. We talked about the Joe Tooney trade last week. We'll not get too far into that this time. But they added some guys. They bring in Jalen Moore from the San Francisco 49ers to be their left tackle next season. Moore backed up Trent Williams for several years, but did start a decent amount of games last year and played pretty well in those games. You brought in another former 49er, Elijah Mitchell, to be the running back. I think he'll fill in that role that Samaje Perine had last year. Of course, Samaje Perine now with the Cincinnati Bengals, the team where he spent most of his career. He's back there. I could see Elijah Mitchell filling that role. And then Christian Fulton, maybe the best signing last year with the Los Angeles Chargers, former first round pick of the Tennessee Titans, a guy who has had a solid, was he a full first round pick? Early round pick of the
He was a
Titans.
second round pick. He was the
Yes,
60th
early.
overall pick in 2020.
Yeah, that's right. Well, an early round pick of the Tennessee Titans has had a solid career, played decently well for the Chargers last year. He is now with the Chiefs to add depth to the cornerback room. So, Lucas, what are your thoughts on all these signings? Do you think, oh yeah, I missed one. They re-signed Nick Bolton, their inside linebacker, to a 3-year contract extension. I did not see this coming. I thought during the Super Bowl, that was the last game we would see Nick Bolton in a Chiefs uniform. I think we'd walk somewhere, but I was wrong. He is back. The quarterback of the Chiefs defense will be back. Lucas and I have some thoughts on that, both good and bad. But Lucas, what are your thoughts on all these moves? Do you think they move the needle? Do you think they're fit to help the Chiefs win, to get back to the Super Bowl again, or do you just kind of think they're whatever? Do you think they're just kind of like, yeah, they're not great, they're not terrible, just they're just kind of there to be made?
I mean, I think I'll kind of discuss all their moves individually. I'm not going to drain out for too long for each one, but I think my overarching point is that I felt like with three of their outside additions, they plugged what we thought were their biggest holes, save for maybe like one or two, because you can't plug every single one of free agency given their cap situation. But they get arguably their biggest need heading into the offseason was left tackle. They signed Jalen Moore, and Jalen Moore's an interesting guy. He is technically a free agent, but I'm almost classifying as like an expensive draft pick, somewhere between a free agent signing and a draft pick, because he's just not experienced. He was drafted in 2020, kind of like Christian Faulkner. 2021, drafted in 2021.
Yeah.
He has 831 career snaps.
Yeah.
Like that's like 14 games in the NFL. Like assuming you play every snap of every game, that's 14 games. It's
Mhm.
not even a full regular season. So it's kind of hard to tell. We don't know what he actually is. But when he did play, when he subbed in for Trent Williams, he was very, very good. He had a pass blocking grade, a PFF of 73.1, which is more than good enough. If the Chiefs got that good a pass protection from their left tackle, they would not have would have had a lot fewer problems on offense in the regular season.
Yeah.
But the contract they gave him isn't like backbreaking. Like as long as he isn't like a total train wreck like Kingsley Sumatea was, it's not going to be a disaster. $11.2 million cap hit this year, pretty large, but if he's good, that's more than worth it. And then another $10 million next year if they want to cut him. So it's $21 million guaranteed. So not backbreaking, but not cheap either. Elijah Mitchell, who is another interesting guy from San Francisco. Not a lot of playing time the past couple of years. He's a speed back. He is very fast, but his main issue is he just gets hurt a lot. Like
Mhm.
he tore his hamstring last August, so he missed the entire season. So I think the Chiefs are not done at running back. I think they just needed speed at running back. They need another body. That's Elijah Mitchell. Not much of a pass blocker, but maybe they'll teach him to be a pass blocker. But an interesting stat in 2022 since 2023, he had 16 10-plus yard runs across 149 attempts, or a 10-yard run roughly 10.7% of the time. Kareem Hunt did that at a 6.6% clip, and then Isaiah Pacheco at a 4.2% clip this past season. So significant upgrade there, but they're not going to use him as a bell cow. They'll bring him in on specific situations. They'll have specific plays for him, but I like it. Kristen Fulton, I really like. Another one of their main issues was they just didn't have cornerback depth behind Trent McDuffie. And when Jalen Watson got hurt, they had to move McDuffie back outside, or they rotated in and out, and they just didn't have enough guys. And to be a successful NFL defense, you have to have three good corners. You got to have two on the boundary, one on the inside. Now getting Christian Fulton, who's a boundary corner, and he's not a great corner. I'd say he's like a solid number two at best, low end number two, really good number three. Trent McDuffie's number one, and Jalen Watson, I think, is a good number two. So they have their cornerback room set. That contract, 2 years, $20 million, $15 million guaranteed. Don't know the cap hit yet. Might be about $7 million, but I like that contract. And then Nick Bolton, probably my least favorite move so far. I just thought they re-signed him more for his leadership, his knowledge of the defense, rather than his ability to play football. Didn't hate it. Like, I'm not giving it an F, but like, I mean, like, really, like, it was a little unnecessary. And another move that annoyed me a little bit was a move they didn't make. That was Justin Reed. Justin Reed signed in New Orleans for 3 years, $31.5
New
million.
Orleans Chiefs strike again.
Yeah, it's that pipe. It's a Texans to Kansas City to New Orleans pipeline for safeties. But Justin Reed got 3 years, $31.5 million, $22 million guaranteed. I'm not sure why the Chiefs didn't match that. To be honest, I thought Justin Reed was going to get the exact contract Nick Bolton got in free agency, and I thought Nick Bolton deserved closer to what Justin Reed ended up getting. So I'm kind of like, I'm not confused because I think the Chiefs knew they didn't want to pay Justin Reed into his later years, but like, that's not an expensive contract. And Justin Reed came off his best year last year in the NFL, or best year as a Chief in 2024. That was his best season in Kansas City. Then Nick Bolton had his worst season, or not his worst season, but maybe it's like second, maybe his third best season at a 4. And they paid the guy who had the worst season. So a little bit confused, but I think the only other move I'll talk about is maybe Tershawn Martin to Carolina. I am very much glad the Chiefs didn't sign that. Like, I love Turk, but 3 years, $54 million with 30 guaranteed is insane. If the Chiefs gave him, let's say, a third of that contract, I thought Turk Wharton was worth about a third of that. Divide all those numbers by 3, except for the years. That's what I thought he was worth. And Carolina decided because they missed out on Milton Williams, we got to get somebody. We'll pay. Oh, this guy was on the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have a good defense. We'll just pay him.
Yeah.
So I like that the Chiefs didn't budge there, but a couple other moves. DeAndre Hopkins to Baltimore, who cares? Samaje Perine to Cincinnati, and then Justin Watson to Texans, definitely who cares? But overall, I would say I'm okay with their free agency, but I'm not thrilled.
Yeah, I'd be kind of whelmed if I was a fan of the Chiefs, which, I have to be, neutral on this podcast. Lucas doesn't have to be. But I mean, I think it was fine. Like, I don't think it was bad. I don't think it was great. I just think it was kind of the move I disagree with the most was trading Joe Thuney. We discussed that last week. Like, I mean, look, I have nothing against Nick Bolton. I think Nick Bolton is an excellent's a strong word, a above average starting linebacker. But I don't know, man. I just feel like Justin Reed's a better player at his position. And
Yeah.
if you're going to give that contract, I would have given it to Justin Reed. And I do think Steve Spagnuolo had a heavy word in bringing back Nick Bolton because like it's very obvious that like he likes Nick Bolton a lot because of his football IQ. Bolton is a good run defender. He's a good downhill linebacker, but he does have his limitations in pass coverage. He's not a sideline to sideline player. Their linebacking core does remain intact. It'll be Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil, and Leo Chanel next season. But I mean, I guess there's really not a whole lot to say. I mean, the biggest move was trading Joe Thuney, but it's a guy who's getting up there, despite the fact that he is, the best guard in football still. He's getting up there in age. He only had 1 year left in his deal. You're not going to extend. I get after a week has passed, like I understand a little more. Like you're not going to extend a guard at 33 years old. So maybe move on a year early rather than a year too late. Trey Smith will be back. We've known that for quite some time now. I just think it's a similar team to last year. I think they'll be better on offense with Rashee Rice coming back, with Xavier Worthy getting another year under his belt. I look at the receiving core like it's going to be Rice, Worthy, Hollywood. Oh, you forgot to mention Lucas Hollywood Brown back on a 1 year deal.
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah.
and then so that'll be the top three. I I mean, you might just, I think you're going to disagree with me. I would like them to see bring Juju Smith-Schuster back as the number 4 or 5 receiver. I don't want to, that because that decreases the risk of Sky Moore seeing snaps, which
Yeah,
if Rice is out to start the year, which he might be due to injury or suspension. Now the Chiefs dodged a bullet this weekend because it looked like Xavier Worthy was going to get in
yeah,
some trouble clearly, quickly. Uh, Things diffused. Nothing really happened. He'll be ready to go next year. So I mean, Hopkins is gone, Watson's gone. DeAndre Hopkins, like it was a trade, like it's worth making, but outside of that Monday nighter against Tampa, he didn't really do a whole lot. He didn't really like get that involved in the offense. He didn't really play much, really that much toward the end of the year. Justin Watson, I've said for a long time, he's the epitome of a guy. I mean, he'll catch some passes, he'll drop some passes. He's just kind of he's an NFL receiver, but he's just kind of like there. He was a useful player, but not one you lose sleep over him no longer being on the team. Tershawn Wharton is the craziest one. Like I said, like I've watched every snap of Tershawn Wharton's career up close, and I think Carolina massively overpaid. Like I'm happy for him, um, getting that financial incentive to play football, but I don't know. Like I just don't think he's worth that much on a I don't know if he makes a defense that was horrendous last year substantially better. And I don't think the Chiefs' defensive line is substantially worse with Tershawn Wharton gone. I think defensive tackle is a position of need, but I think Wharton is a guy like I don't think it should be that hard to find someone who's just as good, if not better than he is, whether it's through the draft. I don't know what free agent defensive tackles are left. It's probably not worth trading for one at this point. I think Veach is probably going to go for a defensive tackle in the draft. But like if I were to grade the Chiefs offseason thus far, do you give it like a B or a B minus? I think it's been fine. Hasn't been
yeah.
bad. I still see them as the team to beat in the AFC until somebody does. And nothing's really changed my opinion. I think they're worse up front on the offensive line, but they're not terrible. If Jalen Moore played like he did in his limited opportunities in San Francisco, and Kingsley Sumayatiia is a respectable starting left guard, I think their offensive line should be fine. I honestly think their offensive line should be better than it was last year. But I like their moves. I like their signings. The only ones I questioned was the Tooney trade, which I understand a little more now after thinking about it. Bring back Bolton at that number, instead of Justin Reed. But I've learned to trust them. You learn to trust a team that's been to 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls.
Yep, exactly. And I think I largely agree. I think when it comes to Juju, I think it's good to get another guy there because right now they have Rice, Worthy, and Hollywood Brown as their top three. They do need a wide receiver four. I personally would rather just them bring in someone with more juice because I think Juju's done. Like he was pretty hit and miss last year. He had 3 games with a yards per route run above point 0.9, and those are the games that kind of went nuts in New Orleans, the conference championship game against Buffalo, and then uh, the Week 14 game against the Chargers. He only had 31 yards, but he was pretty efficient. I'd rather just see them bring in somebody who's I maybe has a higher ceiling, but it's wide receiver four, not going to make or break the team. But wouldn't mind them taking a swing on another wide receiver in the draft or bringing in somebody. Free agent is going to be cheap. I like Olamides Zaccheaus, who
Yeah,
spent his first years in Atlanta and then Washington. He's very efficient. Could kind of do the Rashee Rice thing to like a worse extent because Rice might be suspended. I'd rather do that than Juju. But if they bring in Juju, like they're bringing back Juju or not re-signing him is not going to make or break the team.
yeah, I would like Juju. I like Juju. Like he knows the offense well. He knows his role. He doesn't drop a ton of passes. I just think his limitations are athletically at this point. He's
Yeah,
not fast. He doesn't really separate that well, but he is someone who, has good chemistry with Mahomes. Was the number
yeah,
one receiver on this team, but that was 3 years ago at this point. Like he's a below average wide receiver at this, no,
yeah,
if he's your number 4, he's an above average wide receiver. If he's your number 3 or up, you're probably cooked. But
sure.
he's a good depth piece. I wouldn't. The fact that he's still unsigned leads me to believe that he might be back. Like I feel like they were going to bring one of him, Hopkins or Watson back. Hopkins and Watson are gone.
Or
And
Hardman.
you have Hardman out there. I'd rather have Juju back than Hardman. Like, look,
Sure.
McCall Hardman, Chiefs. He'll live in Chiefs lore and NFL lore forever for Tom and Jerry to win Super Bowl 58. But I mean, he's hurt. He's also hurt all the time. He's not a good route
Yeah.
runner. He has inconsistent hands. I would prefer Juju to Hardman, if I had a choice.
No,
Um,
I don't blame you there.
yeah. So that's kind of where we're at with the Chiefs. Just kind of a, so is probably too harsh. A s solid offseason, I'd say, is what they've had. And we'll see how this Bolton signing ages. I have my doubts, but I mean, he fits their defense. He's a smart linebacker, and obviously he's well liked in the locker room and by the coaching staff. So that matters to some degree. But Lucas and I we raise our eyebrows at it a little bit. All righty.
Sure.
Moving on to there are other teams in the NFL that we will move on to, and we're going to talk about some teams in the AFC North. The Cleveland Browns have brought back and re-signed Myles Garrett to a 4-year record-breaking deal, making him the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. Well deserved for the best defensive player in football, in my opinion. A bit surprising because when this trade request was made, I believe the date was Monday, February 3rd. It was Super Bowl week. Myles Garrett was on record saying, I don't want to go from Cleveland to the Hall of Fame. I want to go somewhere where I can win and compete for championships. So while everyone's like, oh, the Eagles are going to trade for him. Oh, the Bills are going to trade for him to take him over the top. Nope. He's back in Cleveland. He's back on a team that was 3-14 last year as the second pick in the draft. But ultimately, when players say stuff like that, I think money outweighs all. I think this is a proof of that right there. So, Lucas, what are your thoughts on Myles Garrett staying with the Browns? I still think they're terrible. I still think they're one of the worst teams in the league, but Myles Garrett is an absolute game wrecker. So I guess like they're less terrible now. I mean, they were the second worst team in football with him last year, but I mean, it's good to see guys get paid, and it's good to see a guy who I think is a top 3 or 4 player in the NFL get the compensation he deserves.
Yeah, I don't hate this move for Cleveland, but I don't love it either. I think maybe for where this franchise is at, they would have been better off just trading him for a haul of draft picks and kind of like reloading for like 2026, 2027, more particularly 2026, because that's when it would be better to take a quarterback as high up in the draft. If they my entire ideal plan for them was to trade Garrett, get a 2026 first at the very least, because then even if you're not terrible next year and Stefanski and the same regime is still around, they have that extra first to trade up for a quarterback. And next year, you would think would have to be a better draft class for quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it would have been better long term because as great as Garrett is, he's a non quarterback. So like getting a quarterback makes up getting like a maybe not Mahomes, but getting like a top 10 quarterback, like borderline top 10, is like having 2 or 3 non quarterback superstars. Like
Mhm.
that's just how valuable they are because they touch the ball every play. But I mean, and on at the same time, just looking at it from a team building sense, I think it makes sense to, or maybe not looking at it from a team building sense. I think it makes sense to extend him, and I haven't seen exactly how his cap hits will shape out for future years, but I'm sure we'll learn the details in the coming weeks. But I kind of understand it. I don't agree with it just purely looking at it from a team building standpoint, but because if they traded him, like who do the Browns have? Like Jerry Judy,
Nobody.
like Denzel
Nobody.
Ward, like
They're
they have a
horrendous.
bunch of good players, but like Guy Garrett is the face of that franchise, and they traded him. Like whose jerseys are they buying next year? Nick
Yeah.
Chubb is a free agent. Like you
And
can
now
buy a Jerry
Chubb was great at his peak. I think he's kind of cooked with all the injuries at this point.
exactly and right now who is buying a Jerry Judy or a David Njoku jersey? Like
Yeah.
who? So like they kind of maybe need it from a business standpoint to keep fans interested, but I think it's all right. I mean, their cap situation's already a mess, so they might as well start paying him 40 million a year.
Yeah, look, I get it. I don't think any team will admit the fact that they're terrible. I think the Browns are look at their team like, hey, like believe it or not, we were an 11-win playoff team just 2 years ago. Last year was a Murphy's Law season. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Obviously, they were held back by Deshaun Watson early in the year. But even when Jameis came in, they weren't that much better. I mean, they were more fun to watch at least, but they didn't win many of those games. Their 3 wins last year were against Jacksonville, Baltimore somehow, and then Pittsburgh in that snow Thursday night game. Um, like they're just, I don't know, man. Like when you win 3 games last year, you're more than a quarterback away. But I like it for Myles Garrett because, like, regardless, Myles Garrett could never win another game for the rest of his career. Nobody will care. He's going to walk in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. Like, nobody cares if you're not a quarterback how good your team is. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a non-quarterback. If you're a part of a successful team is not a successful team or not, especially when you're as good as Myles Garrett is. I just like for the Browns, it's kind of like, maybe try to reset a little bit. But I do get the points you make of like this guy has been the face of our franchise for a long time, and you know maybe we can sell our fans that we could compete, be somewhat competitive next year. I don't know. I doubt it, but we'll see what happens. All right. Staying in the AFC North, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have one quarterback under contract currently. That quarterback being Skylar Thompson, playoff legend. The is by the off topic. Is Skylar Thompson the worst quarterback to ever start a playoff game?
I don't think he's the worst because I remember Joe Webb started a playoff game for the
Yeah, that's right.
Vikings in
Joe Webb wasn't even
2012,
he wasn't even a quarterback. He was a wide receiver, wasn't he?
but he still technically was the quarterback for the Vikings that game, so he
Yeah.
counts. He counts in my book.
Yeah, I guess. Oh my God, Joe. There are some others like Ryan Lindley in 2014 for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Connor Cook for the yeah, there are some bad ones. That's beside the point. But Skylar Thompson is the only the only quarterback under contract with the Steelers. Despite this, they traded a second round pick and gave a 5 year, $150 million contract to DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is out of Seattle. He is in Pittsburgh. Luke's and I discussed it was a week ago when DK Metcalf initially requested a trade from the Seahawks. I said the Chargers or the Packers. Lucas, I don't remember who you said.
I
Um,
forgot. I don't even
yeah,
remember
I
because
think the
it was definitely
Chargers.
not the Steelers.
It was not the Steelers. We didn't even bring that up. The Chargers and the Packers were the two teams that we brought up. It is in Pittsburgh. He now is paired with George Pickens, assuming they keep him. There's been some rumors maybe they move George Pickens. That hasn't happened yet. Um, I don't love. I get it from the Steelers' perspective, but I do think it's an overpay because you gave up a second rounder, which fine second rounder, like, and gave a 5 year, you know, $150 million contract, which is like top five receiver money to DK Metcalf, who is a good wide receiver, a very good wide receiver, but is like, I don't know, the 18th best receiver in football. Like he's not a great player. I don't think he's worth that much money. I don't know if he's worth a second round pick. I'd probably would have given up like a third or a fourth and felt more comfortable. But he does make them better. He does add some juice to that offense. But, and we'll get to this later on, they currently don't have anybody throwing him the football because I think the bridge with Russell Wilson is burned. I don't, obviously Russell Wilson's former teammate in Seattle. They have a connection there. I don't see Russell Wilson going back at this point. Like I just feel like it's just too far gone. Um, so I like it for the Steelers, but I also think like maybe you didn't need to give up that much and pay him, give him that contract. But I understand it because they're trying to add some juice to that team offensively. So, Lucas, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think it's an overpay? Do you think it makes sense? And how much do you think the fact that they have no quarterback that matters under contract? How much do you think that matters at this point? I'm going to grab some water. You give your thoughts.
Yep. This is a move that I initially my first instincts were like I don't like it very much. Now I've kind of come around on it. And it's not like I'm loving it. I'd still give it a B minus for Pittsburgh, but here's why. I think it makes so much sense. They had to get another weapon to that offense. Their top weapon was George Pickens, who kind of a one-dimensional guy, kind of a hothead. Don't know if he's going to be around. And I know DK Metcalf's not great in that category either, but he's more reliable than Pickens. Pat Fryermuth is a good but not great tight end, probably like the 10th best tight end in football at best. And then it's like, who was it? Jalen Warren and then Calvin Austin. I mean, like, they really had nothing. They needed to get another guy, and they ended up paying a late second round pick. I think it was what pick 52 and a late round pick swap. So essentially, they paid like pick like 50. They paid 52. Sorry, I don't know why I'm stuttering. They paid pick 52 for a low end number one wide receiver, high end wide receiver two. Not bad. And the contract, 5 years, 100 million, which I really think is 4 years, $132 million tacked on to this current year, is scheduled to get paid 18 million. Not great, but more I thought about it, like here's why I don't hate it. The cap's going to be exploding in a couple of years, and who knows? Justin Jefferson got 35 million, and then Jamar Chase, I have no idea what he's going to get, but if he's on the open market, he'd probably get what Myles Garrett got, 40 million a year. So like, go ahead.
We have slight breaking news. It's not really huge breaking news. Harrison Smith is re-signed with the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, I saw that. Yep,
Yep.
Skull.
Whenever because we're at the point in the season where like if something happens, I'm gonna pause and like let you know. I don't think
Yeah,
that's what
that's
we're
all I
talking
do.
about, but Harrison Smith is 35 years old and still like playing really good football. He's back in Minnesota, an all-time Vikings legend again for a team that's really loading up. I
Yeah,
have questions at the quarterback position, but the Vikings
we
are
could talk about.
pretty damn good roster. All right, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you. I just
No, you're fine. You're fine. So yeah, basically pretty much Jamar Chase could get close to 40 million a year. T. Higgins might get like 33 million a year, but it just depends. So I'm saying that I don't think the 5 year, $150 million contract is going to age poorly, but also they're not paying a quarterback. So it's not like they're paying that contract on top of paying full market for their next quarterback. But that's another problem in and of itself is they don't have anyone with their DK Metcalf the ball. And my overall thoughts. I don't hate this. I don't hate. In my initial instinct where I didn't like it. Now I'm like kind of lukewarm on it. It like makes sense because they needed another weapon after George Pickens and Pat Farmer. They needed that third guy. Calvin Austin and Jalen Warren are not it. So, but I kind of mentioned this in the chat earlier, but I like that Pittsburgh's being aggressive because it's kind of showing a change of mindset. Because Pittsburgh was one of those organizations that they're very patient, they're very conservative. They might trade up in the draft, but like they won't make any like wild trades. Like whoa, Pittsburgh made that trade, but and this is kind of it. So maybe it's changing. Like hey, their front office is changing their philosophy. Like we're not gonna be conservative anymore. We're gonna go after it, but this move is going to be heavily dependent on what they do at quarterback. Will they bring in a veteran like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, maybe Kirk Cousins, or will they take a quarterback in the draft like Shador Sanders if he falls or Jackson Dart if they for some reason think it's a good idea to take Jackson Dart at 21? But we'll find out. Overall, I'd probably give this move a C plus B minus. Not ideal, but I don't think the contract's going to age poorly because wide receivers are getting much larger contracts, and it's not like they gave up like a first round pick.
Yeah. And like I said, DK Metcalf's a good receiver. I mean, when I call him the 18th best receiver in football, that's not hating. There's a lot of good receivers in the league. He's a number one receiver. Um, but and he does make Pittsburgh's offense better. I just think they gave up a little bit too much. And if you're Seattle, I mean, you got a second round pick for a guy who didn't want to be there. I mean, I think that's pretty good in my opinion. I think the Seahawks did pretty good with this trade. Um, so yeah, DK Metcalf lands in Pittsburgh. Him and George Pickens, obviously two very large personalities. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes if they're not getting the targets they want. But the Steelers do have some more juice on offense, which has been a problem for that team the last couple of seasons and has held them back. All right. One more thing. We're going to spend a little less time on this. Another premier edge rusher that has been on a bad team for most of his career is Max Crosby with the Las Vegas Raiders. It was announced last week. He will be staying in Las Vegas on a new contract, very similar to Myles Garrett, where money talks. I mean, money is, I think a lot of these players, like they want to get paid. They want to get paid what they're worth. And Max Crosby's worth a lot. I think he's a top five edge rusher in the league. He is a stud, and he has been like literally the only good player in the Raiders over the last like 2 seasons or so. And now he stays in Las Vegas on a team that actually looks like maybe they're moving in the right direction. We'll discuss some other moves they made that I'm sure you saw about. So, Luke, what are your thoughts on Crosby staying with Vegas? And do you think this is a good move for the Raiders for Crosby? Very similar to the Garrett situation. Like you have a superstar edge rusher on a team that's really struggled, a team that won 4 games last year. But maybe he sees like, hey, we're making some upgrades at the quarterback position. We have legitimacy at the head coach. We have legitimacy in the front office. Like maybe this is a team that can actually compete and win and actually maybe get to the playoffs next season. So what are your thoughts on this move for Max Crosby and the Raiders?
I mean, I like it. I don't think this contract's going to age poorly unless Crosby gets hurt. It pretty much takes him through the rest of his
Yeah.
prime, and I think it's about market value. And the Raiders had plenty of cap space anyways. They're not really paying that many people, so Brock Bowers can't get paid for another couple of years. They're not really paying anybody else top of the market, so might as well pay Crosby, your best and most popular player by far. So I think it's a good move. Maybe not an A plus move because it's hard to call something A plus when it was top of the market at the time. And then Myles Garrett decided, you know what? The Browns decided let's pay him Garrett $5 million more per year, but Garrett's probably worth it. But overall, good move, not a great move. Makes sense. Won't be back breaking either way.
Yep. And I get it. And Max Crosby's worth that. Max Crosby is, I think he's super underrated. I think he's an excellent, excellent edge rusher. Um, all righty. Now we'll get to the quarterbacks. And there have been some quarterbacks that have changed teams, some teams with new starters, some teams that quarterbacks will change teams. We'll see what happens. The first one, speaking of the Raiders, we might as well stay because we just talked about them. Last Friday evening, the Las Vegas Raiders traded a third round pick to the Seattle Seahawks to acquire Geno Smith. Geno Smith is now a Raider. He reunites with Pete Carroll in Vegas. Geno Smith was the starter in Seattle for 3 years. They were pretty much dead on average all those years. 2022, 9-8. They got to the playoffs, lost to San Francisco in the wild card. 2023, 9-8, missed the playoffs. Last year they won 10 games, but they did not make the playoffs, which is very rare. Um, Seattle, I mean, it looked like Geno maybe didn't want to be in Seattle anymore. He wanted to play for Pete Carroll again. And the Raiders get a massive upgrade at quarterback. Geno Smith, I think, is probably around, I don't know, the 14th to 16th best quarterback in the league. He's certainly eons better than Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy Garoppolo and Gardner Minshew and Desmond Ritter and the other slop they've tried it out there over the last 2 years. He gives them legitimacy at the game's most important position. And now he gets to throw the ball to Brock Bowers, maybe the best tight end in football. He gets to stand behind a much better offensive line. The Raiders quietly have a pretty decent offensive line, certainly better than the Seahawks offensive line. Maybe they get Ashton Genty in the draft. I mocked them. I mocked Ashton Genty to go to the Raiders in our mock draft from a couple years ago. I think the Raiders are trying to build a potent offense. And I like this move for the Raiders because I think Geno is probably the best available quarterback. Like Geno is, obviously we'll get to Sam Darnold later on, but like I think Geno gives you a chance to actually like be relevant next season if you get some more receivers. Maybe, I think they need at least one more receiver. They need a running back who they don't have. That's why I think they should take Genty. What are your thoughts on this move for both the teams, for both Seattle and the Raiders? Bringing in Geno Smith to Las Vegas.
For the Raiders, I love it. I think they paid pick 92 in the draft, which
Yeah,
is fine. Like the Raiders coming in arguably had a bottom two or three quarterback room. It's up with Cleveland and the Giants for the worst. I mean,
yeah, it was
maybe
bad.
Tennessee's in that
It was
race
atrocious.
that well. And now they have a top 15 quarterback. Maybe if you want to be a little conservative, top 18, more than fine. That's a giant upgrade. That enough will buy them at least two or three wins alone this season.
Yeah,
So I think it's a good move. Didn't pay a lot. I don't think he signed a contract extension yet. So I think that'll get done at some point. But again, similar to Max Crosby, assuming it's not like a 5-year deal with like 200 million guaranteed, not going to be backbreaking. I still think they should try and draft a quarterback, but I think given Pete Carroll's age, I'd be shocked if they drafted one at 6. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
no,
Like Pete Carroll's older. They just traded for Geno Smith. They need to get better now, and Pete Carroll wants to win now. He's not interested in being going 5-12 next year, and then maybe next year, the year after, we'll make a jump to be a wild card team. That needs to be 1 year ahead. So expect them to draft like Ashton Genty or high end corner at 6 to improve the team. But from Seattle's point of view, it sounds like Geno wanted to be out. Wasn't devastating for their cap situation. They get a decent pick. Like Geno Smith was a good investment. They initially signed him on as a backup to Russell Wilson. Then he became a good starter for several years. So good asset management there. But I guess I'll make the executive decision. We'll pivot on to the next move is Sam Darnold to Seattle.
yep, that's
Uh,
kind of
kind
Donald.
of, kind of like this is a move where it's kind of like glass half full, glass half empty. I'll take the glass half full approach. The Sam Darnold contract I thought was reasonable. Like
Yeah,
I think a lot of people thought like, oh, that's a terrible contract, but like 3 years, $100 million, 55 million guaranteed. That's not terrible. That's 33
no,
million a year when Dak Prescott got 60 million a year.
yeah,
And it's a little bit more than what Baker Mayfield got, which I thought makes sense because it's a year later after Baker Mayfield. I thought Darnold was good enough to justify it until
yeah.
the final 2 games of the season.
Until those last games.
What I'm confused about is Sam Darnold's not really a guy who does well under pressure consistently. He doesn't manage pressure well. We saw that in the final 2 games where there are other quarterbacks like Allen, Burrow, and then Mahomes it seems like every other game is good at dealing with pressure. That's not going to happen. He's not going to be protected in Seattle. Like Minnesota didn't have the greatest offensive line, but Seattle's offensive line is a train wreck. Charles Cross is a good left tackle, but pretty much every other position on the offensive line is a question mark. Like Abraham Lucas at right tackle, he may or may not be the answer. I think he was hurt a lot of this past year, but their interior is a joke. But John Schneider does not like to take interior offensive linemen in the first round. He's pretty much he'll take a tackle, defensive line, or like a wide receiver. He's not going to take a guard at what pick do they have? Like 18?
Yeah,
That's not going to happen. So I'm worried if Sam Darnold's not going to be protected. He only has one weapon at JSN because they just traded Metcalf and cut Tyler Lockett. I don't think that's an awful move. Like I said, 3 years, $100 million. Even if it goes bust, they could probably get out of it next year and maybe have to swallow like 20 million in dead money or 30 million in dead money, which won't cripple the franchise. But I think Sam Darnold's better, but I think in a weird way, Geno's a better fit for Seattle because I think Geno
I
Smith
think
is
I
better
think
dealing with a bad offensive line.
Geno's a better quarterback than Darnold, in my opinion.
I think Darnold's more talented, Like if you
Yeah.
want, I did Darnold's the higher ceiling, but the problem is I think Geno's better at managing a bad offensive line,
Yeah.
dealing with pressure. Sam Darnold's not good at that, so I just don't like the fit with Seattle. But I get kind of what they were trying to do, get a younger quarterback who more aligns with Mike McDonald's timeline. But I'm like another move where I'm kind of like lukewarm, but I get kind of see both sides of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this makes Seattle like I don't think Seattle's that great of a team anymore. Like they were like a pretty average team with Geno. I think Darnold's worse than Geno because I think Geno has a longer track record of good play. Like Darnold basically has like 13 excellent games in his career. Um, but they have a bad offensive. I think they have an average quarterback, a bad offensive line, one receiver. Defensively, I actually think they have some really good players on defense. I think their defense could be pretty good.
Yeah,
That'll keep them in games. But I do think they're going to struggle offensively a little bit. We'll see what they do in the draft. But I do think Darnold's probably the best Seattle could have done to justify moving on from Geno Smith, an above average starting quarterback. Like, you're not bringing Aaron Rodgers behind that offensive line. That'd be a disaster. We can joke all we want, like, oh, bring back Russell Wilson. That was never going to happen. I think, like, I think some. I mean, it's been some time, but like that was such an ugly exit. Like, I think the next time Russell Wilson goes back to Seattle, it'll be for his jersey retirement. Whenever he walks away. I mean, the other options, Justin Fields, like Darnold's better than Fields. Like Darnold sells the fans a little more. Like it's the best they could have done. I think of like viable options, like he's probably the closest to Geno Smith in the quarterback hierarchy. So I like it from that perspective, but like every single time Sam Darnold has played in his NFL career, without a great supporting cast, which he's only had once, it has not been good. And I get it. The Jets situation was bad. Adam Gase was the coach. He had no weapons. I hear you. The Panthers situation, not significantly better. He basically had Christian McCaffrey, who got hurt early that year, so he had nobody else. Um, but Seattle's situation, like, is Seattle's offensive infrastructure that much better than what he had in Carolina? Is it? I mean, he has, Clint Kubiak is the play caller who did some decent things with the Saints last year, but I mean, they ultimately were a 5-win team. You have one above average wide receiver. You have Noah Fant, an average tight end, a bad offensive line. You know, me average-ish running backs. Like Kenneth Walker had a great rookie year. He hasn't really done much since. So Darnold with mediocre to bad offensive infrastructure, which Seattle currently has. I mean, they signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling today. Like they signed former Chief MVS today. I don't think that does not move the needle at all. Although he did play pretty
MVS and JSN.
yeah, I mean, just weirdly, MVS played pretty well with the Saints last year, but that is like Darnold with this offensive infrastructure, which Seattle's offensive infrastructure is pretty mediocre. That's being kind. Would concern me if I was a Seahawks fan.
No, I don't blame you. Like I'm fascinated to see what Seattle does with their offensive line. If they don't do anything, this has a potential where Darnold's like at midway through the season, he's like 15 touchdowns, like 15 interceptions, and it looks uglier than that. But we'll see
Yeah,
how well they can protect him.
yeah, because I think, and and you and I think we come across as Sam Darnold haters in the past because
I'm not like,
no,
yeah, I'm
like
not.
I like Darnold. I think he's a fine quarterback. But I think this maybe has the potential to be a disaster where it's like midway through the season, Seahawks are like, uh-oh,
Yeah,
what did we do? Um, but like I get it. I think it's worth taking the gamble, but unfortunately, Justin Jefferson and Kevin O'Connell aren't walking through the door.
yeah.
Um, Alrighty. Now let's go to Sam Darnold's former team. That is the New York Jets. Officially released Aaron Rodgers today as the start of the new league year, and they are bringing in Justin Fields, former first round pick of the Chicago Bears, was there from 2021 to 2023. Spent last year in Pittsburgh with the Steelers. Started the first 6 games as Russell Wilson was dealing with a calf injury. He went 4-2 in those starts. He took him out. He did not start another game. Steelers used him sparingly in like some wildcat packages, but he didn't really play much down the stretch last year. Um, I I like this for the Jets because Fields is a guy who does have he's very young. He just turned 26. He has elite physical tools. He has a great arm. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's a great rushing threat. I mean, he ran for over 1,000 yards with the Bears in 2022 on a really bad team. But his issues are a lot of the other stuff. He is not a good processor. He doesn't read defenses well. He holds on to the ball way too long. Like he's never been a great decision maker, but he does have the arm talent. Whereas like if those things can be coached out of him, which I don't know if they can at this point due to the fact that he's going to his fifth season, but if the Jets' new offensive staff can like and it's a pretty unknown commodity with the staff, but like if they can get him to read the field better, if they can get him to get the ball out quicker, maybe they have something there. And you have the connection with the fact that he was Garrett Wilson's college quarterback. Garrett Wilson was very happy about this. And the Jets provide him with like decent infrastructure. Like they have an above average offensive line. Um, yeah, they have Garrett Wilson, who's a stud, a top, 13-ish receiver in the league. They need to get a number two receiver because the receiving core outside of Garrett Wilson is pretty scarce at the moment. Like their tight ends are whatever. I mean, Brees Hall's an excellent running back, a top, seven running back in football. And I think Brees Hall could benefit from this the most because unlike Aaron Rodgers, Justin Fields is a rushing threat, which could open up holes for Brees Hall. I like this for the Jets. It's kind of like a why not signing. Like, see if this guy can be something in the NFL. He has the physical tools. He obviously has a lot of flaws. He sat behind Russell Wilson for much of last season in a good organization, which the Bears did not provide him when he was there. I think it's kind of like a why not take the flyer. We're coming off an embarrassing, disastrous season. We're moving on, and we're gonna see what we can get out of this guy. And I think it's a low risk. It's a I'm not sure how high the reward is, but it's a low risk move that could potentially work out. So I like this for the Jets. I think they paid a little bit too much, but I like the fact that they got him. I think he was the best choice for that team.
Yeah, I largely agree. Like, I think the Jets had room for error, or like they have a new regime. I forgot who the new GM, but like they got Aaron Glenn. They
Yeah,
can afford to take a minor. This is not a swing for the fences. It's not a like, oh, if this goes wrong, we're all fired type of move. It's like 2 years, 40 million. That's
yeah,
manageable. Their cap situation's not horrible. If it goes wrong, you cut him after this season. But I think Justin Fields, like I ain't been kind of a Justin Fields hater for a lot of my career. Like I
I'm the opposite. I've always liked Justin Fields. I don't think he's that good, but I've always been a fan. Like I believe it.
yeah,
I believe in his traits. I believe he can. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry to cut you off.
very fine.
He can develop into an average
Yeah,
quarterback.
or yeah, I,
Like,
I was gonna say I was gonna I phrased it poorly. Like I've been a Justin Fields hitter majority of my life, but now like not my life, but like since he became the NFL
yeah, yeah, I
circles,
get it. Yeah,
like I initially coming out of 2021, like there was some talk of like, oh, Justin Fields should go ahead of Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson, and we're not gonna talk about Zach Wilson. We're not gonna talk about my opinion of Zach
yeah,
Wilson. This is a safe space, but I thought just I thought the talk of like legitimate NFL people having Justin Fields above Trevor Lawrence was crazy. I
yeah,
just didn't understand that. I thought Justin Fields had way too many flaws to his game to be above like someone like Trevor Lawrence, who I didn't view him as like, oh, this generational prospect. I thought he was a legitimate number one pick. I just didn't get the Fields hype. And in Chicago, like I think the most toxic I ever been against Fields was like Bears fans like having copium like, no, we should trade the number one pick. We should pass on Caleb
yeah.
Williams and Jalen Jaden Daniels.
That was
Like for
ridiculous.
Justin Fields, who had 3 years where he was never great and is going to get more expensive. Or you could pass on a number one pick with several good options for a quarterback. So I thought that was insane. But ever since he went to Pittsburgh, I'm like, why not? Like you said, he has the tools to be great. He throws a good deep ball. He's accurate deep, but he just doesn't process the game very well, and he doesn't have very good pocket management. But if he could solve those things, then he could be really freaking good. Maybe not MVP good, but he could be a very very good starting quarterback. I like this with the Jets. It takes the pressure off them for having to reach on a quarterback at 7 because Cam Ward's not going to be there at 7. I
No.
don't think they're in a position to trade up. Like I still think the Jets should draft someone on like day 2 or day 3 with like traits to sit behind Justin Fields. I think Tyrod Taylor's still there, so the rookie quarterback could be the third stringer, just as like insurance, just in case Justin Fields doesn't work out. You have like another young guy who could potentially be the answer.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, like I said, I don't think Fields will ever develop into a star quarterback. But when you look at young, recently highly drafted quarterbacks who have failed early on and rebounded, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, to a lesser degree, Baker Mayfield, because Baker Mayfield was actually had some success in Cleveland. I just think they were ridiculous to move on from him when they did. So I don't think Mayfield is that. But Darnold and Geno are the obvious ones. And because they played for the Jets, everyone's like, nope, Zach Wilson's the next reclamation project. Who, by the way, Dolphins, good luck. Tua, stay healthy, please. Um, I think Justin Fields is the obvious choice because I think I think he has the ceiling to where he can have a season like Darnold had last year, like Geno had in 2022. That might be a fluke, but we're looking up like, wow, Justin Fields made the Pro Bowl this year and the Jets made the playoffs. I don't think that's out of the question. And I think this was the best choice for the Jets. Alrighty. Last one. Saddest one. Lucas, do you have any liquid or anything? Do you have like a bottle of water or something?
I have Diet Dr. Pepper.
All right, pour one out for Shane Steichen, please. No, no, don't actually, but you get the metaphor. Because Shane Steichen, head coach of the Colts, now is to oversee probably the saddest quarterback competition in NFL history, as the Colts yesterday morning signed Daniel Jones, former New York Giant, longtime starter with the Giants, to a 1 year deal, 1 year, $14 million deal to compete with their former fourth overall pick, Anthony Richardson, for their starting job next year. And I'm not going to mince words. Both these guys are bad at this point. Now, Richardson obviously is a higher ceiling. Richardson is pretty similar to Fields, whereas like the tools are there, everything else is not. Um, but it's this is something where and I do think the Colts have done some good things for agency. Like they've improved their defense. They signed Tarvarius Ward from San Francisco. They signed Cam Bynum from Minnesota to improve their secondary, which was a disaster last year. But Daniel Jones, I feel like we kind of know who he is at this point. Like he had that one season in 2022 where like things broke right. And even that year, he threw 15 touchdowns in the regular season. He had one excellent playoff game against the Vikings where he spent, the back half of last year on the practice squad. By the way, an awful, awful Vikings defense, like literally the worst defense in football, that got him that big contract. It was a disaster since then. And he gets another chance. Shane Steichen is a smart offensive minded coach. He did a really good job with Gardner Minshew in 2023, where they almost made the playoffs. And Anthony Richardson's a guy who he just hasn't put it together. Like he's not an accurate passer. He is not a good processor. He's not a good decision maker, but he is very young. He obviously is very physically gifted. And one of those two guys will be the Colts starting quarterback in 2025. But both those guys, the sample that we've seen for most of their careers has been bad. So, Lucas, do you think there's any chance where, first of all, who do you think wins the competition? Second of all, do you think there's any chance like this works out for the Colts in any capacity?
I could see it. I could see it working out. I mean, I could
Yeah,
see Anthony Richardson taking the next step and
yeah,
like, oh, he's actually a good quarterback.
yeah,
But I mean, eh. Like, I don't know what the Colts' plan was. I know they said they wanted a competition, but like if they
yeah.
brought in like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, that wasn't going to be a competition.
They were
I
just
think they just I think they wanted someone who's like on the level of Anthony Richardson. So I think a lot of people are looking at it like, oh, Daniel Jones isn't that good. I think they wanted someone like around um Anthony Richardson's like skill level, but I think
yeah.
Daniel Jones is a little bit of a higher floor. So like it's like Daniel Jones, he's awful, or he's awful's a little bit strong. He's not good,
He's
but
not
he's
good.
not gonna go like he's not gonna go 5 for 20. He might go like
Richardson did it.
10 for he might go like 10 for 18 and like have an average depth of target of 4. But I think Shane Steichen's like, okay, I could run a somewhat functional offense with Daniel Jones, and Lou Anarumo hopefully will make the defense like respectable, and then that gets them like 9-8, and that buys them an extra year, and then at that point they'll move on from Anthony Richardson, and then, but like I've always classified Daniel Jones as like a perfect bridge quarterback.
Mhm.
Like he's talented enough to where like maybe you could like win like 8 games, something like that,
Yeah.
or go like 9-8, be the 7 seed, be like a bad 7 seed, but he's not like good enough or talented enough to like threaten the starter, like or the young kid who's like
No.
sitting behind him. Like he's like Alex Smith. He's like a poor man's Alex Smith.
Yeah.
He's like if Alex Smith was worse at a little bit everything, that's Daniel Jones. And I think they just want someone who's not Anthony Richardson, someone who's not going to go 5 for 20, someone who maybe might throw a script, might check down every single play, and someone who has some juice. I think what they're just trying to do is they're hoping that Anthony Richardson is good, and then if they have to play Daniel Jones, they can kind of do what they did with Gardner Minshew a couple years ago. Because Daniel Jones is not going to be Joe Flacco, or Joe Flacco was just dangerous and was going to throw a bunch of picks, and Joe Flacco honestly wasn't that good. Daniel Jones is better than Joe Flacco was last year, but I think this is kind of like they're hoping like God, I hope Anthony Richardson wins because like if we have to rely on 15 games of Daniel Jones, I don't think they're going to go anything better than 9-8. So they
Yeah.
better hope. But I don't hate the addition. Like I think a lot. I think his legacy's been hurt for the fact by the fact that he's in New York, so he's been kind of a lightning rod. But I think Daniel Jones is a very very low end starter, like anywhere from like the 30th to like the 35th best quarterback in the NFL. But
Yeah.
like the Colts are not a scary team. Like no elite team should be threatened by the Colts when they
No.
play with Daniel Jones.
And of
But
course,
like they just gotta hope that they gotta hope Anthony Richardson develops.
the Chiefs playing next year, and the Chiefs lost to one of the most ridiculous teams I've ever seen in my life, that
Yeah,
Matt Ryan Colts team. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, nobody's going to a game like, oh my gosh, we have to play Daniel Jones and or
yeah,
Anthony Richardson. But I do think, look, I do think the Colts are maybe holding out hope that Anthony Richardson can develop into something. We'll see how he progresses during camp, and he might win the job. Who knows? Like maybe he wins the job. Like 14 million is a lot for a backup in that case. I mean, if you're Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard, like you should hope Anthony Richardson wins the job because that means he showed enough improvement to where you trust him to go out there week one and get to the playoffs. Whereas if Daniel Jones wins the job, you're like, oh shit, our former fourth overall pick can't beat out Daniel Jones. So if I'm Shane Steichen, like I'm and Chris Ballard, who both of whom kind of feel like they're entering the hot seat, especially Ballard because he's been there so long. Like I'm hoping, like yeah, like I kind of want. I'm kind of rooting for Anthony Richardson to win this matchup. Quarterback.
yeah,
All right,
yeah.
now to longtime veteran NFL quarterbacks that currently do not have a team. That is Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. We will start with Aaron Rodgers, was officially released by the New York Jets today, but we knew that was going to happen a month ago. Rodgers, it looks like, is going to play for one of three teams in 2025. It'll be one of the Pittsburgh Steelers, New York Giants, or Minnesota Vikings are the team that we've seen some whispers about. I'm not sure how real that is, but we saw a report today. Like the Vikings have had conversations about maybe bringing him in. Rodgers maybe is interested in going there. We'll see. Um, Although the big boys, the Rappaports, the Schefters, the Pelisaros, they've never said anything about the Vikings. The rhetoric that I've gotten, it's between the Steelers and the Giants. And shocker, no decision has been made. It's another offseason where the future of Aaron Rodgers is up in the air. There's a picture of him on the beach today with wired headphones and wrapped up in a blanket walking on the beach. So I'm sure Steelers and Giants fans are thrilled to see the quarterback their teams are in a bidding war over doing that. But anyway, back to the point. So what do you think the end game is here? Where do you think he ends up? Um, do you think do you think there's any possibility he retires, which would be pretty embarrassing for both these teams, potentially all three of these teams? We've seen some like very small whispers about that. So what do you think happens? And when do you think it happens? And do you think where do you think Aaron Rodgers will be week one of the 2025 season?
I'm kind of surprised that hasn't happened already because I thought, given how they kind of notified him a couple of weeks ago that the Jets are going to release him, and I'm pretty sure they allowed him to speak with other teams at that point. Like, I'd be
Yeah,
shocked if they didn't. It would be bad practice. But even so, I thought he would have been signed by now because, like you said, teams I think make sense for Rodgers. You brought him up, like the Giants, Steelers, Vikings, and maybe the Titans, just because they don't have a team. I
that's
can't
not
see him.
he's not going
Yeah,
to sign. Yeah,
I can't see him
I've
going to
seen
Tennessee
nothing.
or the Browns.
I've seen nothing from them.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So
or
like
I've seen nothing from those teams.
there is rumors that he wants to play for the Giants because he doesn't want to move, but like then at the other side, the Steelers or Vikings give him a better chance to like make the playoffs in his final year or two. So kind of getting conflicting reports. Like I think he's a low end starter. Like I think Aaron Rodgers is like maybe the 18th to somewhere in the 18 to 23 range among top NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But we also don't know how much money he's looking to get paid. Like this Jets had to take on $49 million in dead money. They'll probably split that over 2 years, but I just don't know how much he wants. If he wants like $30 million, that might be a little bit tough. But if he's willing to play for a little less, then I think that leaves every team open. But it would be really funny if we went back to Minnesota, followed the Brett Favre path. Longtime Packers quarterback, wins one Super Bowl surprisingly, multiple MVPs, goes to the Jets. Sorry, I had to cough.
No,
Really ugly
I,
Jets tenure, and then goes to the Vikings to finish his career. So I have no idea where he's going to sign. No inkling. But I think it's going to be one of the Giants, Steelers, or Vikings. It's just a matter of which one he picks and when.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be Pittsburgh. We've seen some various hints that like that's what's going to be. There are reports like on Monday that said many expect Rodgers to go to the Steelers, and then there's some reports like, oh, the Giants are closing the gap. But there was a tweet this morning from Slick Rick, who I'm sure Lucas is aware of, a anonymous Twitter account that has made many predictions accurately. He's not always right. He got Joey Bosa wrong. By the way, Joey Bosa to the Bills, another signing. He got that wrong yesterday. He had him going to the 49ers. Joey Bosa is now in Buffalo. Um, but he tweeted a picture of Aaron Rodgers, an AI generated picture of Aaron Rodgers and Mike Tomlin meditating in a forest, and then later tweeted a picture of Russell Wilson and saying the Giants will now have to go to plan C. Pat McAfee, obviously very close with Rodgers, retweeted a video from 2021 talking about of Aaron Rodgers talking about how much he likes Mike Tomlin, and McAfee gave some answer of like, "Oh, I just happened to see that on my timeline today. That's why I retweet." Yeah, right. Sure. There was also a report from John Geiger, who is who works in Pittsburgh. Um, I'm trying to, I don't know what he does, but apparently, like, he's like a legitimate, like, source, not a source, but like a legitimate person said that Aaron Rodgers has bought in Pittsburgh Pirates memorabilia. So all those things kind of align. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know what that means. I just think it's worth mentioning. I think he ends up there. I don't know when. I'm surprised it hasn't happened already. I just think it's another instance of Aaron Rodgers like trying to keep the spotlight on him and taking up all the headlines in another offseason. I'm kind of tired. Like I said, like I think it's ridiculous that this was less annoying when he was winning all those MVPs. I think it's pretty ridiculous that we're spending the offseason talking about the 19th best quarterback in the league, but it's such is life. So I think he ends up there. I think the Steelers kind of need him because there was a list of quarterbacks the Steelers could go to if Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign there. And buddy, I'm trying to pull it up now, and I'm going to try to get to this list without laughing. It's Russell Wilson, who, by the way, I don't think is going back at this point. Mason Rudolph, who was formerly there. Mac Jones, Gardner Minshew, Jameis Winston, Joe Flacco, Marcus Mariota, Cooper Rush, Drew Lock, Trey Lance, and Carson Wentz. So all those options are probably worse than Rodgers. So if you're the Steelers, you should probably be motivated to get this done. And I think that's ultimately what happens.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, now we're going to go to the Steelers starting quarterback from last year, Russell Wilson. Um, there were supports that like it's possible he could go back there. I don't see that happening at this point. I just feel like it's too far gone. And Russell Wilson, it was reported today, will be meeting with the Cleveland Browns tomorrow and the New York Giants on Friday. So, Lucas, where do you think Russell Wilson will be playing football in 2025?
I am gonna. I think I'll end up going to the Giants because if Aaron Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh,
Yeah,
I think the Vikings will stick with JJ McCarthy, and then the Giants are kind of the only other team left. I could see Cleveland. He visited Cleveland today, or he will visit Cleveland. I'm not sure
and
if that
tomorrow.
happened. That's happened yet, but I think the Giants make the most sense for him. But again, because I think the Giants will be the most desperate and they'd be willing to pay him the most. But again, I don't think a team signing Russell Wilson should expect to make the playoffs. But
I mean,
it is
it
what it
happened
is. But
last year. Russell Wilson made the playoffs last year.
but I don't think any of the remaining teams left, save for maybe Pittsburgh, will make the playoffs. And I think Rodgers will go to Pittsburgh. So like any other team that's in contention, Giants, Browns, Titans, none of those teams are playoff teams, and no chance he goes to Minnesota. But I think he'll end up being a Giant. We'll see if that turns out to be true, but I have no inkling at this point.
I mean, say what you want about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson would be the best quarterback Brian Daboll's had with the Giants.
Yep, true.
And that's true. Do you think there's any chance he ends up back with the Steelers if they somehow don't get Rodgers? Because I feel like
It's kind.
I think it's over. I don't think that's happening at this point.
I mean, I don't know if I would if I was him. Like it's very they almost made it public. Like Russell Wilson's our second choice, and if I were him, for ego's sake, I'd be like, wait, I'm very clearly your second choice. You're just waiting for this other guy to make a decision. Like
Mhm.
fuck that. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like if you're want to. It's like you're you ask someone to the prom, but then they're like this other person's like I'm gonna see if this person C is going to ask me. But if person C doesn't ask me, I'll go with you. Like it's almost like screw that. Like if you're not willing to give me a yes immediately, I'll just screw off. And that's why I think maybe the Giants or Browns make more sense than Pittsburgh. But we'll end up seeing. But maybe he'll swallow his pride and he'll go back to Pittsburgh if Aaron Rodgers tells the Steelers no.
Yeah, and I don't know why Rodgers would do that. Like, if
Reunite with DK Metcalf. Like, well,
yeah, I mean, see what that happens. So your prediction is you don't know where Rodgers goes, and you think Russell Wilson goes to the Giants.
if
You
I had
think
to pick, I would say Rodgers. I would say Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, Giant, and then Wilson goes to the Giants. Those are my picks, but I'm not going to sit here and say with like any sort of confidence.
That's the same with me. I think Wilson ends up in New York with the Giants because I
Yeah,
actually think when you look at the Giants, we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about them more later on. I think they've built that team to like at least something worth watching. Like Wilson would be the best quarterback Dable's ever coached. You have an absolute stud in Malik Neighbors. You have Darius Slayton. You have Tyrone Tracy. You know Theo Johnson. He was a looked like a decent tight end. The offensive line needs work, obviously, but like if you bring in Russell Wilson for a year, like that's a team that can maybe win 8 games and at least be competitive. So I think that's something that could work out for the Giants. My in Before we get to our last topic, my predictions for the rest of the dominoes, I think the Titans stay at 1. I think they're going to take Cam Ward. I think, and then that leaves Cleveland. I mean, I don't know what Cleveland does, honestly.
they have Kenny Pickett.
Oh my God Almighty! Hey, Super Bowl winning quarterback Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett has more Super Bowl snaps than Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he has more Super Bowl winning kneel downs than Jalen Hurts.
This is true.
Like,
This is very true. Actually, he has more Super Bowl winning kneel downs than Mahomes. Mahomes never knelt down in his Super Bowl wins, if you think about it. So
yeah, I mean, technically, I think he. I don't know if they ever. I didn't. I don't know if they knelt down against the Eagles to drain the clock,
no, they never
but
got the ball because the last play was Hurts throwing the Hail Mary, and of course
no, I meant like taking a knee like after the Bradbury penalty. I forgot if the Chiefs took knees to drain the
Oh
clock
yeah,
or
yeah,
they
yeah,
just
got it.
ran like de facto run plays. But granted, that was great. That wouldn't even been to end the game. So you're right.
Yeah,
That was just a drain clock.
and of course he had Tom and Jerry, and then the first Niners won them. I don't remember what they did. Uh,
No, they.
they
I
threw
think
that.
maybe no. Actually, I do think they took knees against in the first Niners Super Bowl to drain the clock. But the problem was the last play of the game. They would have had to snap the ball with like 4 seconds left. So
Yeah,
like I think what he did was he ran back like 10 yards and then launched it like
I
60
remember
yards down
that.
the field in the air. Yeah.
And then Joe Buck said, "That will do it. Chiefs are Super Bowl champions in Miami." Great, great times.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I don't know what Cleveland does, but I think that's my prediction for these two guys. All right, we're gonna keep this one brief. We're gonna pick two teams that we felt won and lost, are winning and losing the offseason thus far. Lucas, you'll go first. You'll give your two winners, your two losers. I'll do the same, and we'll wrap this thing up real quick.
Excellent. So my first winner, I'm being kind of biased, but give me the Vikings. Like
Okay.
I they beefed up their biggest problem, arguably this past season, what other than maybe their quarterback play down the stretch was their interior offensive line. They bring in Ryan Kelly, huge upgrade from Garrett Bradbury at center. Will Fries, who technically a bit of a risk, but he was fantastic for the Colts in 4 or 5 games last year. That is a chance to be a really good contract that ages
Yeah.
well, 5 years, 88 million. But they also upgraded the interior of their defensive line. Javon Hargrave, 2 years, 30 million, 19 million fully guaranteed. Don't love the contract, but he's still a huge upgrade for that defensive line. Jonathan Allen, I hated that contract. I think it was like
Yeah.
3 years, 51 million, 30 million guaranteed. He was terrible for Washington. But again, their defensive line still objectively better. They improved on both trenches, so that's good for them. And then Byron Murphy, I thought a fairly team friendly contract. Like 3 years, 54 million, 35 million guaranteed. That's actually not bad. I think he's a very low end number one, high end number two. Still think they need another corner, but that's still a decent contract. They didn't fall into the trap of overpaying Sam Darnold, so I think that's part of it. I'm
Hmm.
a believer in JJ McCarthy, so I think not signing Darnold was good. I think McCarthy has a chance to be really good, and if he is, this is a huge win. They didn't bury themselves with that Darnold contract, but it all come down to JJ McCarthy's good. They did resign Harrison Smith, like you said earlier. He's a
Yeah.
franchise legend around here. He's very popular, so it's a good move. My second winner is I'm going to go with the Raiders. I had a hard time picking the second winner, but because I know because we intentionally didn't pick the same team, so that's kind of why I had to
Yeah.
scramble for a second team. But they did lose Max Crosby, their most popular player, get a severe upgrade at quarterback from who cares to Geno Smith. That's very
Yeah.
good. And then they did lose some key pieces, but improving that horrible quarterback room, and then not losing Max Crosby is very good. They did bring in a couple key pieces. I didn't like the Alex Kappa contract, but I still think the Raiders are going to be very good. Now they can pretty much do whatever they want. I think it's eighth overall. Yeah, it's eighth overall. Could take.
Sixth. Sixth.
Oh, it is sixth overall. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was getting them and the Panthers confused. Yeah, sixth overall. Pretty much, there's a good chance there might be an elite player there. They could go Ted McMillan, wide receiver from Arizona, or they could go Ashton Genty. Like they don't need to reach for a quarterback anymore. Having the sixth overall pick is almost going to be like having a top 5 pick because we know Cam Ward's going to go 1, so or is going to go before that. I don't think they need to reach. I thought they had a good free agency, maybe not a great free agency, but right now I think I'm going to give them the big win just of the quarterback room alone.
All right, I'll go with my winners real quick. My first winner is the Broncos. I think the Broncos could potentially have like a top 3 defense in football next year. They bring in Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga from San Francisco. They bring back DJ Jones. Um, gosh, did they? Who else did they sign? I mean, they already have Surtain and Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Zach Allen. Um, and in the safety room you have Brandon Jones. Like I think Denver. That Greenlaw signing really moves the needle, in my opinion. I think they were an elite unit on defense last year. I think they can even be better this year. Um, I think the Broncos. I think teams are going to have a tough time scoring against the Broncos. We'll see what happens with them on offense, but they were a playoff team last year, who significantly improved their defense. They didn't really do much to add on offense. Like their receivers are still meh, the running backs are still meh. Bo Nix exceeded my expectations last year. We'll see if he can get better. Their offensive line is still pretty good, and obviously they have Sean Payton there still calling plays. I think Denver could be a legitimate. I don't know about a contender, but like a legitimate like 12-win type team next year. And my other winner, surprisingly, we just talked about them, is the Giants. I think the Giants have some really good pieces on defense. They signed Javon Holland, who I think is a top 5 safety in the league. They bring in Paulson Adebo, who's been a very good corner throughout his time in New Orleans. Obviously, they have a pretty good front with Dexter Lawrence is incredible. Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't lived up to his draft status, but I think he's a good player. They have Bobby Okereke, a linebacker. And offensively, I mean, they bring back Darius Slayton, which I think was for a good deal. They have some like decent pieces. Malik Neighbors is an absolute stud. And it looks like they're going to have one of Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers next year, who obviously both passed their prime, but both provide upgrades to what they've had the last several years. I think the Giants have done a good job. I think Joe Shane has done a good job this offseason.
No, I agree with both those picks. I think those are really good. And I think moving on to the losers, and unless you're not unless you want to talk about my 2 winners, the Vikings and the Raiders.
Yeah, no, it's tough to disagree. Like, I think the Vikings have done a great job. I mean, they were a 14-win team last year, and I think they've gotten even better, honestly. Specifically on the offensive line, which their interior of their offensive line was a weakness last year. Hargrave is not the player that he once was because of his age. He's coming off a major injury, but I mean, I think they paid him a little too much, but I think it's kind of like a why not signing a guy who has been a really good player in the past. Jonathan Allen, I get it, but like he was not good last year. He's been a good player throughout his career. Last year was not the case. Um, but I understand it to the sense like you're trying to bolster your unit up front. They bring back Harrison Smith, who's still playing good football. They bring back Aaron Jones. I like what the Vikings did, and your other team was the Raiders. Yeah, I mean it's tough to disagree when you go from Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell to Geno Smith. I mean that's enough to where we're like, yeah, like this is a team that can actually go out and be a serious football team next year. So yeah, I think you had two pretty good choices there.
Excellent. Yep. So my 2 losers, the first loser is pretty much the inverse of my winner, and it's weird because they swapped 3 players. And my first loser is
Yeah.
the Colts.
Okay.
So like they lost Will Freeze and Ryan Kelly. Both of them signed with the Vikings. Like that's a problem. Like I know they have Matt Gonsalves, who could be a good swing tackle. Maybe he'll kick inside to guard, but
Mhm.
like didn't really love that. And then Daniel Jones, we talked about it, doesn't make them significantly better. Like if Anthony Richardson stinks, Daniel Jones is your quarterback, not ideal. Like, and they did sign Cam Bynum, Travarius Ward, who are good players, but like not great. That the defense should get better with Lou Anarumo and those 2 guys, but at the same time, like their quarterback room might still be bad and their offensive line got worse. That's a problem. So they're one of my losers. Second team is the Saints. I don't think they've had like a disastrous offseason by any sense, but like I still need to wait for their cap situation to update, but it doesn't seem like they're really out of that cap hell that they've been in for the past 5 years. They're gonna have to go through this mess again next year. Chase Young, 3 years, $51 million. Why? Like, why?
Yeah,
Like, I don't get it. Like, they could easily draft someone at like I think you're picking like ninth or something like that. Like, they could easily they'll have their pick of pass rushers, maybe say for like one
mhm.
at ninth overall. Like, why? Why'd you have to give Chase Young $51 million? He's not a terrible player, but like not even close to worth that money. Jawan Johnson, 3 years, $31 million. Again, why? If they didn't want to take a pass rusher at ninth, they could have taken Tyler Warren, I think. Like Tyler Warren is a day one starting tight end. Jawan Johnson's IE. Like, I just thought that was an unnecessary contract.
Mhm.
And then Justin Reed's a good signing, but like doesn't make them significantly better. He's a safety. And it's almost like, okay, yeah, Justin Reed, that's a great contract, good value, but like is Justin Reed really going to take them from like 6 wins to 7 wins or 6 wins to 8 wins? No, not really.
Doing
That if
fine.
that's your best move, then like I eat. Then ooh, they still have Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr still gets a little bit too much hate, but like he's still on a bad contract.
Mhm.
They don't have their quarterback of the future on the roster. I think Spencer Rattler is not the guy, not great. And then they still didn't solve their long term cap issues, and I don't think this roster is good enough with Kellen Moore to be a real threat.
No, I can't disagree. And like Carr, when he played last year, was solid. I mean, they were 5-5 with him, 0-7 without him. But if I was the Saints, like I would have like tried to move on and like just I would have just like I would have thrown Spencer Rattler out there and like,
Nope. We got some breaking news.
what's up?
Not any real breaking news, but like on the umpire Harrison Smith. Mac Jones has signed a 2 year deal with, you want to guess who?
The Niners.
Correct. Did you see
I
that?
just yes.
Oh, you cheater. But yeah, 2 year deal with the 49ers worth $70
Yeah,
million.
sorry, I
dollars.
cheated. All right, so he's backing up. So Brock Purdy is a new backup. Isn't it like the Niners wanted to sign and other somewhat breaking news, the Chargers brought Mike Williams back. So Mike Williams is back with the Chargers.
Yeah.
Whatever. Mike Williams is cooked at this point. But I mean, look, Brock Purdy is a backup quarterback. The Niners, it was rumored they wanted to draft him in 2021. Now he's there. Mac Jones is the mold of quarterback Kyle Shanahan likes. Why not? Sure, whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
It
cool.
makes sense.
Yeah. All righty. Where was I? Oh, yeah, I was talking about Derek Carr. Like, I would have thrown Spencer. I would have tried to move on from Derek Carr and thrown Spencer Rattler out there and been like, okay, all right, buddy, go be a tank commander next year. But the Saints, I feel like they just refuse to rebuild. And the Colts, yeah, look, dude, like their offensive line got worse and they have a bad quarterback room. I mean, there's not much else to say. All right, my first loser is the Bengals. With the trade request from Trey Hendrickson, the retirement of Sam Hubbard, re-signing a bunch of guys who really aren't that good. I mean, defensively, like they have, if Trey Hendrickson is gone, they have one good player defensively. That's Logan Wilson, their linebacker. Like, it kind of feels like they're going to need to score 40 points to win a game again next year, which was the case last year. Like, I just feel like the Bengals are just kind of like in no man's land. I just feel like, yeah, you had two golden opportunities to win a Super Bowl in 2021 and 2022. They didn't get it done, and now they're just kind of back to what they've been, just with a better quarterback and a better wide receiver, two elite receivers in Chase and Higgins. But besides that, I mean, there's not a whole lot to like about the team. And I just kind of feel like I mean, they signed TJ Slayton from the Packers, really did nothing in Green Bay, was a mediocre at best player. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I would not be excited if I was a Bengals fan for the direction the team's going. I mean, Joe Burrow was incredible last year and they missed the playoffs. Like, that terrify me if I was a Bengals fan. There's the probability of Joe Burrow playing better next year than he did last year is not high, and they couldn't make the playoffs last year. So I just don't like what they've done. And my other team's the Patriots. I just think the Patriots spent way too much on guys who like not a lot of these make sense. The only one that I like is Carlton Davis at corner, but they still have no receivers. I mean, the only receiver signing was Mac Hollins, who was useful for the Bills last year, but like, I mean, you can do better than that. Mac Hollins doesn't make your receiving core any better. I think they
He's a
overpaid.
low. He's a wide receiver 3 at
Yeah, I
best.
mean, he's not bad, but like, I mean, maybe try to get someone better than I don't know. Maybe go after Debo or somebody like somebody who was a better player who was available. I think they overpaid Milton Williams. Milton Williams is a really good football player, but he was not even a starter in Philadelphia most of his career, and he really only has one season of great production. So I think they spent a little too much there. He also doesn't have Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith playing next to him in New England. I think Morgan Moses was an overpay. He's an older tackle who's injured often. And I think Harold Landry was an overpay, a guy who's coming off, has been injured multiple times in his career, really hasn't had a good season in a while. And as a guy that the Titans realized, like, yeah, we won 3 games last year, but like we're good, we're moving on. And the Patriots gave him 3 years. How yeah, I don't know what the exact number was. I
That
just
Harold Landry contract was
it
ridiculous.
was ridiculous. I just think that these
Yeah.
contracts the Patriots are giving out is just like yeah, or like are you're going from a 4-win team to a 6-win team. That's the way I see it. Like they still have no talent they still have very little talent offensively. Their defense is like better, but I wouldn't say it's good. Like I don't know. Like I just feel like the Patriots, I just don't feel like they're allocating their resources in an efficient manner.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic like joke, like just because you or not joke, but saying like just because you have cap space doesn't mean that's necessarily a good thing because it kind of forces you to spend money, like more money than necessary. Like Milton Williams for 26 million, Harold Landry for that albatross.
Yeah.
It's insane, and I think the Carlton Davis contract. I think that's a sneaky good contract. I think he's fine. I think he's a really good player. Christian Gonzalez is number one. So you have two really strong corners. It's a good foundation. And I think Milton Williams is good. They just paid him too much. But granted, they have a lot of cap space. That's not going to kill them. Drake May still has another 2 years until he needs to get paid.
Mhm.
But that Harold Landry contract is my least favorite of the entire offseason, save for maybe Tershawn Wharton. But
Yeah.
again, they need to nail the draft. They have the fourth overall pick. I think they need to get a weapon of some kind. Like this is not a team that needs to take like Mason Graham or like Will Campbell. Like maybe they could still take Will Campbell, put him at left tackle, but this offense is still set to be really bad. They drafted a lot. They signed a lot of defenders, so maybe that means they're going to go ahead offense heavy in the draft. But offense is not looking very much better. Morgan Moses is I eat, but Morgan Moses, Matt Collins, I eat, but not like really going to take them to a top 15 offense. They need a lot
Yeah.
more help.
Or even an average offense. Like if I'm New England, I'm calling the Niners like, what do you want for Brandon Ayuk?
Yeah,
That's what I would do. Because I mean, maybe the Niners hang up, but the Niners have kind of haven't had a mass exodus this week. A lot of their guys, a lot of their key pillars of this run they've been on the last several years are gone. I mean, if you're the Patriots, like who's their wide receiver one? Is it honest to God Hollins, Keyshawn Booty, uh, Jalen
I mean,
Polk,
is Kendrick Bourne? Kendrick
and
Bourne still there?
Kendrick Bourne? Is he still there?
I
Like,
think he is. Yeah,
all right, Kendrick Bourne's still your wide receiver one. Like, I don't know. It's tough to be taken seriously in that regard, in my opinion. So I don't know, man. I just feel like they could have used those resources a little in a better manner. All right,
agreed.
that will wrap for this episode of the Owen Smith Show. We once again went over an hour, as we always do. We love talking football. There's always a lot. I feel like there's more to talk about in the offseason than there is during the season, weirdly enough. But we'll be back next week, Lucas and I. Thank you very much, and tune in next time.